What is this? This changes everything.
What does it mean?
She went for a routine checkup, but one mistake changed her life forever. A powerful mafia boss, a secret night, a pregnancy that wasn't meant to be. And now, her world is torn between love, betrayal, and danger. Who will protect her? Who will claim her heart? And can she survive the deadly secrets of the man who never believed in love? Before we dive into today's story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a thrilling tale full of love, suspense, and emotion. Stories that will keep your heart racing from start to finish. The city slept under the weight of fear. Its heartbeat was the rhythm of engines, money, and blood. Somewhere above that trembling world, in a glass tower touching the fog, Victor Moretti stood, the man everyone feared to whisper about. He wasn't just a name. He was a storm in a suit. Tattoos climbed his neck like dark vines, disappearing under his shirt collar. A golden chain gleamed against his skin, catching the low light of his office chandelier. Victor Moretti, 32. A man who ruled the underworld like a silent god. No emotions, no second chances, no mercy. He sat behind his marble desk, cigarette burning between his fingers, eyes cold as winter steel. Every call, every deal, every betrayal, it all ended with him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Power listened when he spoke. Outside the tall window, rain drew silver streaks across the glass. It matched his mood. Quiet, heavy, calculated. He had everything men killed for. Wealth, power, fear. But the one thing he despised was love. He'd seen what it did. He'd watched his father die for it, trusting the wrong woman. He'd learned that love was poison, soft on the lips, deadly to the soul. His office door creaked open. Luca, his right-hand man, entered quietly. "Boss," he said, placing a file on the desk. "The shipment from Palermo's cleared." Victor didn't look up. "Any problems?" "None. But there's word the Russians are moving again. They want a piece of the docks." Victor flicked ash into a crystal tray. "Then burn their boats," he said calmly. No anger, no hesitation, just command. Luca nodded, but his eyes carried a flicker of fear, the kind that came from watching a man do whatever it takes. Because Victor didn't threaten. He acted. Moments later, the office emptied again. Only the hum of rain and Victor's slow breathing remained. He leaned back, exhaling smoke toward the seal. Iling. Sometimes, when the city grew too quiet, he could hear ghosts whispering, the voices of men who crossed him, the echo of women who tried to love him. But he'd buried all of that deep, under tattoos, under scars, under the empire he built from blood and silence. His phone buzzed. He ignored it at first. Business could wait. But the vibration persisted, a dull insistence that drew his attention. Unknown number. He frowned, picked it up. "This is Moretti." The voice on the other end trembled. "Mr. Moretti, this is St. Clara Medical Center. We need to verify a few details about your file." Victor's brow furrowed. "I don't have a file. You must be mistaken." "Sir?" The voice continued cautiously. "You had a DNA sample submitted 2 months ago during a police investigation. There's been a mix-up. Your name is now linked to a pregnancy record." For a moment, Victor didn't move. The cigarette burned down to ash between his fingers. "What did you just say?" The caller hesitated. "It's complicated, sir. A woman's pregnancy report has your DNA attached to it. We're trying to confirm it's an error before informing the patient." Victor stood slowly, the chair creaking under his movement. Through the glass, the city looked smaller now, like something he could crush with one hand. A mistake? A trap? He didn't do accidents. Every move in his life was precise, deliberate. The idea that someone had his DNA, that his name was tied to a pregnancy, it was absurd, impossible. "Who's the woman?" he asked, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The line went quiet. "Sir, due to privacy regulations, I can't disclose her name." Victor's tone hardened, slicing through the air. "Find out who she is, now." He ended the call before they could respond. His chest rose slowly, his mind already spinning through possibilities. Someone was playing a game, and Victor Moretti didn't play games. He ended them. He poured himself a drink, the liquid amber under the low light. The glass trembled faintly in his hand, not from fear, but from something colder. Curiosity. What kind of woman was tied to his name? And why did something about that call feel wrong? For the first time in years, Victor couldn't focus on his empire. The rain kept falling, but his thoughts were louder, tangled, restless. He looked out the window again, at the city that bowed beneath him. Somewhere out there, a stranger carried his name in her life story, and for a man who never believed in fate, that realization felt like the beginning of something he couldn't control. He hated not being in control, but deep down, a part of him, a part he'd buried long ago, was waking up. Something human, something dangerous. The phone rang again, this time from Luca. "Boss, everything settled at the docks. Anything else?" Victor stared at the rain for a long moment before answering. "Yes. Find out everything about St. Clara Medical Center, and who they called before they reached me." He ended the call, walked toward the window, and touched the cold glass. His reflection stared back, the untouchable king of the underworld. But tonight, even kings could bleed curiosity. He didn't know it yet, but that one call, that one strange, accidental link, was about to rewrite his entire life. As Victor turned to pour another drink, his phone buzzed again, a text message from an unknown number. He opened it, expecting another business update, but instead it read, "You don't know me, Mr. Moretti, but the baby I'm carrying has your eyes." Victor's glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the marble floor. Across town, while Victor Moretti stared at the broken glass on his marble floor, another life moved quietly through the gray morning. A soft rain brushed against small apartment windows, and the scent of brewed coffee filled the air. Elena Carter tied her hair into a loose bun, her fingers trembling slightly. The calendar on the wall was filled with circled dates and hopeful notes, reminders of doctor appointments, test dates, and little stars that marked the days she and Ryan had prayed for a miracle. For months, they had tried to start a family. For months, she had smiled through the silence of disappointment. Ryan emerged from the bedroom, half-buttoned shirt, phone glued to his ear. Even on weekends, business came first. He flashed her a quick smile, kissed her forehead. "Good luck at the clinic, babe. Call me after." Elena nodded, pretending that the small distance between them didn't hurt. When the door closed behind him, she sighed and looked at herself in the mirror. She whispered softly, "Maybe today's the day." St. Clara Medical Center glowed with that sterile brightness only hospitals carried. White lights, faint perfume of disinfectant, nurses moving like ghosts in blue scrubs. Elena checked in, holding a small form between nervous fingers. The nurse smiled. "Just a quick routine fertility scan, right?" Elena nodded. "Yes, we've been trying for a while." The doctor, kind-eyed and professional, ran the usual tests, promised results in a few days. It was ordinary, uneventful, the kind of appointment she'd had many times before. But as she left, she couldn't shake a strange unease. Something in the doctor's polite smile had felt too careful, too studied. Outside, the city was loud and restless, yet she felt detached from it all. Her umbrella tilted under the wind, her phone buzzed with Ryan's short text. "Meeting went long. Don't wait up." She typed back a heart, erased it, then sent nothing. Days passed. The rain didn't stop. Each morning she waited for an email or a call from the clinic. Each night she stared at the empty side of the bed where Ryan used to hold her. On the fifth day, her phone finally rang. "Mrs. Carter?" Her breath caught. "Yes, that's me." "Good news. the nurse said. Your test came back positive. Congratulations, you're pregnant. For a second, the world blurred. Tears filled her eyes. She sat down on the edge of the bed, shaking with relief. Pregnant, finally. When Ryan came home late that night, she ran to him, laughing through tears. Ryan, we did it! We're going to have a baby! He froze, smile uncertain. That's great, really great. But his voice lacked the spark she expected. He hugged her quickly, then walked to pour himself a drink. You sure the results are right? He asked over his shoulder. She blinked. Of course they're right. The words stung, but she let them go. Maybe he was just surprised. Maybe he was tired. 2 mornings later, St. Clara called again. This time it wasn't the cheerful nurse. It was the doctor himself, voice grave. Mrs. Carter, could you come in today? There's something we need to clarify about your results. Her chest tightened. Is the baby okay? The baby's fine, he assured quickly. It's more of a technical issue. Ryan couldn't come. Important meeting, as always. So she went alone. The hallway to the genetics department felt longer than usual. A clock ticked too loudly. Inside the consultation room, the doctor gestured for her to sit. He folded his hands, took a measured breath. Mrs. Carter, first, congratulations again. The pregnancy is healthy. But our lab flagged an anomaly in the DNA profile. It seems the genetic data of the father doesn't match the information we have for your husband. For a moment, she didn't understand. The sentence hung between them like smoke. What do you mean? She whispered. Sometimes there are lab mix-ups, he said carefully. A sample could have been mislabeled during testing. Elena felt her heartbeat in her throat. She had never done any treatment, any procedure without Ryan, nothing that could cause confusion. And yet the doctor looked at her with the steady patience of a man walking on glass. He continued, to be transparent, we traced the mismatched data to another patient. We're still reviewing, but his name appeared in your file. Due to the same DNA code used for cross-verification. She gripped the edge of her chair. Whose name? The doctor hesitated, eyes flickering to the file. I shouldn't, but you deserve clarity. He exhaled slowly. The name attached to your pregnancy report is Victor Moretti. The sound of it meant nothing to her. Just a name. Foreign, hard, unfamiliar. But the doctor's tone carried weight, as if the name itself was a warning. She swallowed. That's impossible. I don't know anyone by that name. I believe you, he said softly. That's why we need to meet again with our administration team. There's clearly been a mix-up, and we have to correct it before any records go public. Elena nodded, numb. Outside the clinic, the rain had stopped, but the air was heavy. She walked slowly down the steps, clutching the small envelope of test papers. At the corner, cars honked, life went on, but she couldn't hear any of it. Pregnant, but somehow not by her husband. Her mind swirled with questions too wild to make sense of. Was it an error, a cruel prank, a scientific nightmare? When she reached home, Ryan wasn't there. His phone went to voicemail. She sank onto the couch, staring at the test report in her trembling hands. Across the top margin, printed in neat black letters, the words looked unreal. Patient crossmatch. Victor Moretti. She pressed her palm over her mouth, tears threatening. Her phone buzzed again, the clinic calling back. Her heart jumped as she answered. The same calm voice spoke, but now it carried a hint of urgency. Mrs. Carter, please don't panic, the doctor said. We just finished our internal audit. There's been a very unusual chain of events. We need you to come back in person. There's a patient involved whose DNA was never meant to be connected with yours. Her voice broke. You already told me his name. Yes, the doctor replied quietly. But there's more. The man whose DNA appeared in your report, he's not just a patient. He's someone you should never have been linked to. His name keeps our staff awake at night. Elena's breath caught. Why? Who is he? The doctor's answer came like a whisper of thunder. Because, Mrs. Carter, the name Victor Moretti belongs to the head of an organized crime syndicate. We need to talk, and we need to do it face to face. Elena's phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. The doctor's last words echoed through the static of the disconnected call. For your safety, don't tell anyone yet. We think Mr. Moretti already knows. The car ride to St. Clara Medical Center felt longer than it should. Elena gripped the seatbelt as rain traced thin rivers down the window. Her fingers trembled, twisting the strap again and again. She had imagined this meeting in countless ways: a polite conversation, a simple explanation, an apology perhaps. But nothing could have prepared her for the weight of uncertainty that now pressed against her chest. The city passed in blurred streaks, lights bleeding like watercolor across wet asphalt. Every honk, every scream of a siren felt like it echoed her own rising panic. She kept replaying the doctor's words. The name Victor Moretti belongs to the head of an organized crime syndicate. Her pulse raced. Her mind screamed at her to turn around, to leave, to hide in her apartment until someone else resolved this nightmare. But the logical part of her knew she couldn't. She had to face it. The car stopped in front of a nondescript black building, security cameras mounted in precise, silent angles. Elena swallowed hard and took a shaky breath. The receptionist looked up, offered a professional smile, and handed her a visitor badge. "Mr. Moretti is expecting you," the woman said without emotion. Elena's stomach turned, expecting her. The words repeated in her mind like a drumbeat she couldn't escape. The elevator ride up felt like an eternity. She could feel every heartbeat, every pulse of fear, every whisper of adrenaline racing through her body. When the doors opened, she stepped into a corridor lined with dark wood panels and cold, polished floors. A man appeared at the end of the hall. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a confidence that seemed almost predatory. His hair was dark, slicked back, tattoos peeked from beneath his sleeves. A golden chain glimmered faintly under the soft overhead lights. Elena froze. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet she couldn't take her eyes off him. Victor Moretti, the man whose name had haunted her appointment results, whose DNA inexplicably connected him to her. He stopped a few feet away, observing her with a quiet intensity. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just looked, and the look itself carried a weight that made her chest tighten. "Mrs. Carter," he said finally, voice low and calm, yet every syllable demanded attention. Her lips parted, but no words came. She nodded once, unsure if that was polite or frightened. He stepped closer, and the air seemed to change. Something in the room shifted. The light dimmed slightly. The space between them felt charged. He stopped again, close enough that she could see the faint scars on his hands, the subtle lines of his jaw, the calm darkness of his eyes. "I understand there's been a mistake," he said. "Some sort of DNA mix-up." His voice was flat, measured, but beneath it she sensed curiosity, interest. Something that wasn't fear or anger or irritation. "Yes," she whispered. I don't know how this happened." Her voice trembled, though she tried to steady it. "I just want to understand." Victor's gaze softened ever so slightly, but only just enough to make her feel a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Awareness that someone powerful could see her as a person, not a problem. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of an air conditioner and the occasional click-o of distant heels in the hallway. Elena's palms were clammy, twisting the strap of her bag. Her heart raced with every second. Victor's presence was oppressive, yet strangely magnetic. He studied her, carefully, as if reading the lines of her face could explain everything about the world. "You seem startled," he said. "I am," she admitted. "Good," he said softly, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "I like honesty." Her eyebrows lifted. She didn't know if that was reassuring or terrifying. He reached for a chair across from him, gesturing for her to sit. She hesitated, then lowered herself onto the leather seat, feeling the distance between them shrink with every measured movement. His eyes didn't leave hers. Every gesture he made was precise, deliberate, yet his focus on her carried a strange warmth. It unsettled her. It confused her. It made her pulse spike. I need to know everything that happened, he said, voice low. Elena swallowed hard. I I only came for the routine checkup. I didn't do anything unusual. I didn't. Relax, he interrupted, cutting her off, but softly. Just tell me what you know. Her hands fidgeted in her lap. Victor noticed. He leaned forward slightly, curious, analyzing, but not threatening. It was the way he looked at her, intense, almost impossible to read, that made her feel exposed, seen. Your husband. Did he know about the appointment? He asked, eyes steady. Yes, she said. He always comes with me, but... Her voice faltered. Today, I went alone. A shadow crossed his face, almost unnoticeable. Victor's hand brushed against the edge of the table accidentally as he reached for a pen. The movement was slight, but it carried a strange weight. Elena's hand, unaware, moved closer to pick up her own bag. Their fingers brushed briefly, the accidental touch electric. Her chest jolted. She looked up. Victor's eyes widened imperceptibly, a flicker of something dark, something unfamiliar crossing his expression. Neither spoke, neither moved, and yet, in that silence, something ignited, a spark that neither could. It explain. Elena's breath caught. Her fingers tingled. She didn't understand the feeling, but it rooted her to the spot. Victor cleared his throat softly, regaining his composure. Interesting, he murmured, almost to himself. His gaze lingered on her for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The room seemed to shrink around them. Every noise outside faded. Everything except that spark, that tiny electric charge connecting them in a way that felt impossible, dangerous, and inevitable all at once. Elena tried to stand, to regain control of herself, to remember that she didn't know this man, that he was a stranger, that she was meant to be careful, but her legs felt like lead. Her chest fluttered in a way that scared her and thrilled her all at once. Victor shifted in his seat, leaning back slightly. He said nothing, but the tilt of his head, the faint tightening around his eyes, spoke volumes. He had noticed it too. The silence stretched, thick and unspoken. Neither moved, yet the space between them was alive with tension. Elena forced herself to breathe, forcing her hands to rest in her lap instead of near him. She didn't understand the pull, the sudden electricity, the weight of his gaze, and she wasn't sure she wanted to. Victor finally spoke again, low, measured, almost a growl. We'll figure this out, you and I. His words carried a promise, or perhaps a threat. She couldn't tell which, and the ambiguity only heightened the rush in her veins. Her throat was dry. Her heart raced. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet every part of her wanted to stay. The moment stretched longer than time allowed. A storm hung between them, invisible, palpable, waiting to break. And then, before either could speak again, his hand moved slightly to adjust a pen, her fingers brushing his once more. The spark returned, stronger this time. Something unspoken passed Bedin. Weaned them. Curiosity, recognition, danger, and an undeniable connection that neither could ignore. Elena's pulse hammered. She wanted to step back. She wanted to escape. And yet she stayed, frozen by the intensity of Victor's gaze, the heat of proximity, and the magnetism that neither wanted to name aloud. The world outside the office ceased to exist. Rain continued to tap softly against the window, unnoticed. The faint hum of the building disappeared. It was just them. Her eyes met his, searching for some hint, some meaning, and she saw it. The first flicker of something beyond the cold, ruthless reputation she'd been told. Curiosity, intrigue, something that felt like interest. Victor, too, held her gaze, measuring, analyzing, intrigued by the delicate, unexpected presence before him. Her innocence, her nervous energy, her vulnerability, it was unlike anything he had encountered. Neither spoke for several heartbeats. Every second stretched, heavy, dangerous, and full of unspoken possibility. And then, just as the tension became unbearable, a soft knock echoed from the door, pulling both from the moment, reminding them that the outside world still existed. The spell broke, but the spark remained. Something had shifted. Something had begun. Victor's hand brushed hers again. Just slightly, almost by accident. But this time, neither could pull away. Something ignited, unspoken and undeniable. And both knew, in that instant, that their lives would never be the same. The office felt impossibly quiet after the spark of that accidental touch. Elena's hands lingered in her lap, her pulse hammering against her ribs. Her mind raced with 1,000 questions, all tangled in a storm of fear, curiosity, and something she didn't dare name yet. Victor leaned back in his chair, a shadow crossing his eyes. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he studied her. Her hair fell in soft waves around her face, the faint blush on her cheeks betraying the storm inside her. She didn't notice how carefully he observed, how every movement he made was deliberate, calculate, yet strangely gentle. The silence stretched until Elena felt she couldn't breathe. Finally, she whispered, "Why is my DNA linked to yours?" Victor's gaze hardened, but it wasn't anger. It was something else. A mixture of curiosity, disbelief, and a very dangerous spark of protectiveness. He tilted his head, watching her tremble with nerves. "I don't know," he said slowly, voice low, like gravel rolling down a hill. "It's not supposed to happen." Elena swallowed hard. Her mind spun. Everything she thought she knew about her life, her marriage, her routine, her safety, seemed to collapse in that instant. She wanted answers. She wanted the world to make sense again. And she wanted to run, but every instinct told her she couldn't. "Then, what do we do?" she asked, voice barely audible. Her hands clenched together so tightly that her knuckles went white. Victor's eyes softened ever so slightly. It was the first hint of a human emotion beneath the mask of steel. The phone on his desk buzzed. He ignored it, letting the sound fade into the tense atmosphere. For a moment, the only thing in the room was the quiet hum of electricity, the unspoken connection between them, and the storm of questions that neither dared voice aloud. Victor's hand moved to his chin, brushing against the faint stubble along his jaw. He considered, calculated, weighed possibilities. This was not a situation he encountered often. Mistakes did not exist in his world. Every detail was controlled, accounted for, precise. And yet here it was, an uncontrolled anomaly, a disruption in the order of his life. "Come with me," he finally said. Elena blinked, unsure what he meant. "Where?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. "To my private investigator. He handles unusual cases like this," Victor replied. She wanted to protest, to remind him she was married, that her life was ordinary, that nothing in her world prepared her for a man like him. But something about the set of his jaw, the unwavering certainty in his eyes, silenced her. The ride was silent, heavy with unspoken tension. Elena kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. Every red light, every turn, every passing car felt amplified, as if the city itself were watching, waiting for her next move. When they arrived at the office of Victor's investigator, a sleek, understated building tucked between dark alleyways and unassuming shops, Elena's nerves frayed. The receptionist barely looked up, and the man who appeared a moment later exuded authority without effort. He introduced himself as Marco. Victor simply nodded, never breaking eye contact with Elena. Inside, the small office smelled faintly of leather and coffee. Files were stacked meticulously along the walls, every drawer locked, every surface polished. Marco motioned for them to sit. Victor did not release his attention from Elena. "Mrs. Carter," Marco began, "this is going to sound unusual, but everything is documented. There was a lab error. A DNA sample of a patient named Victor Moretti for an unrelated police investigation was mixed with your sample during a fertility check." Elena's eyes widened. Her hands trembled. "Mixed? How? How is that even possible?" Marco explained patiently. A rare procedural error, cross-contamination, human oversight. Victor had been completely unaware. Her DNA had been recorded correctly. It was the paternal match that had been misassigned. The truth was mundane, almost boring in its bureaucracy, yet it sent her world spinning. "And my husband?" she whispered. Marco paused, exchanging a look with Victor. "He signed off on the tests without your full knowledge. He claimed it would speed up the process." Elena froze. Her stomach dropped. The betrayal was sharp, sudden, a blade twisting inside her chest. She thought of Ryan, of all the nights she had spent hoping, trusting, loving, and now she felt the weight of his deception crushing her. Victor's hand clenched slightly on the armrest of his chair. Something in his expression darkened, not with anger, not yet. That came later when she would understand the full extent of betrayal, but with a protective instinct she had not expected from him. He wasn't looking at her like a stranger anymore. He was looking at her like someone he needed to shield. Elena's throat went dry. I can't believe this," she whispered. "Why would he do that? Why would Ryan—" Her voice broke, tears pricking the corner of her eyes. Victor leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His eyes, intense and gray, softened slightly as he regarded her trembling form. "Listen," he said quietly, voice low but firm, carrying the weight of command. If the child in you is my DNA, then I will protect you both." The words struck her like lightning. Her breath caught in her throat. The room seemed to shrink, the hum of the city outside fading into nothing. The world she had known, her ordinary life, her marriage, her routine, collapsed into chaos and uncertainty. Victor's tone was not threatening. It was solemn, a promise, a warning, and something else. Something she didn't yet understand, but her heart recognized. An intensity, a force, a presence that would not let harm touch her. Her mind spun. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to run. But the weight of his gaze, the certainty in his voice held her in place. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you care?" Victor didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her with an almost predatory patience, the corner of his mouth hinting at a faint, unreadable smirk. "You're part of this world now," he said finally. "Whether you like it or not, this connects us, and I don't let anyone harm what belongs to me." Elena swallowed hard. Her pulse raced. This man, terrifying in every way she had been told about him, in every story whispered across the city, was now making promises she couldn't fully understand, promises she didn't know whether to trust. She thought of Ryan, of betrayal, of lies. She thought of Victor, of danger, of protection, of a spark in his eyes that she had felt in that brief, accidental touch. The office was silent, charged with tension, heavy with decisions yet unspoken. Elena realized she was standing at a crossroads. Her life as she knew it had ended the moment the words Victor Moretti had entered her reality. Victor's hand moved slightly, brushing the edge of her chair, almost imperceptibly. She felt the warmth of his presence, the electricity in the space between them. And she knew, without fully understanding why, that nothing would ever be the same. Time seemed to stretch. Rain pattered lightly against the window. Marco sat quietly, watching, sensing the storm that hung between them, but wisely leaving it untouched. Finally, Victor's voice cut through the heavy silence, calm but commanding. "We will uncover the truth, and you will be safe. I will not allow otherwise." Elena nodded, trembling. Her mind was a whirl of fear, confusion, and something new, a pulse of unexpected hope she didn't dare name. The room remained quiet for a long moment, the tension settling like dust in sunbeams. She wanted answers, wanted clarity, wanted the world to make sense again. And yet, standing there in front of the man whose name had haunted her, she felt the first trace of certainty, that she was no longer alone. Victor's gaze softened slightly again, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. "You don't understand yet, but I will not let anyone hurt you." The words lingered in the air, heavy and electric. And for the first time, Elena realized that this wasn't just about a DNA mix-up. It was about survival. It was about power. It was about Victor Moretti. Victor leaned closer, his eyes locking on hers with an intensity that stole her breath, and whispered, "If that's my child, I'll protect you both." Elena returned home in a daze, the echo of Victor's words lingering in her mirror. She walked through the front door and paused, feeling the familiar space suddenly foreign. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with the weight of what she had just learned. A child. Her child. And a truth she couldn't yet fully process. Ryan sat on the couch, phone in hand, pretending to be absorbed in work. When he looked up, his smile was automatic, practiced, like nothing had changed. Elena felt a surge of anger mix with hurt, and the small tremble in her hands betrayed the storm inside. "We need to talk," she said, voice low but firm. He nodded, setting the phone aside. "I figured as much," he said, leaning back casually, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Elena's chest tightened. "Ryan," she began, "why? Why did you do this?" He hesitated, running a hand through his hair, avoiding her gaze. I I just wanted to make things easier," he said finally. "You wanted to make things easier?" she echoed, disbelief and rage flaring at once. "You gave my body over to him for a business deal?" Ryan's eyes dropped. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I thought it would secure the partnership with Victor's company. I didn't think about you." Elena felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. Her chest ached, her breath caught in her throat. "You what?" she whispered, voice trembling. "You what? You drugged me? You let him?" Ryan flinched at her words. "No, I didn't. I mean, I just—" His voice faltered, fumbling. "I gave the order. I gave him access. I didn't think it would happen like this." Tears pricked Elena's eyes, not just from betrayal, but from disbelief. She felt shattered, hollowed, broken in ways words couldn't capture. "You gave him my body," she said, each word trembling but sharp. "You treated me like I was nothing, like I was tissue paper you could just hand over." Ryan tried to reach for her hand. She recoiled. Her hand shook, trembling in anger and shock. "I trusted you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Everything we had, our marriage, our life, was it just a transaction to you?" He opened his mouth, but no words could fix the chasm between them. Elena's eyes filled with tears, hot and unrelenting. Her body quivered with rage, with grief, with the shattering of a world she thought she knew. "I hate you," she said finally, voice low but cutting. "I hate what you did. I hate that you thought this was okay. I hate that you think I'm just something to use." She slapped him sharply across the face, the sound echoing in the empty room. Ryan blinked, stunned, touching his cheek, realizing the depth of her anger. Elena didn't wait for a response. She turned on her heel, grabbed her bag, and walked out. The streets outside were gray, muted, reflecting the storm in her heart. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay. The betrayal had stripped her of comfort, of routine, of trust. Every step felt heavy, as if the world itself weighed against her. Her mind raced. Victor, his words, his promise to protect her, the thought of him, terrifying, commanding, yet fiercely protective, was the only flicker of clarity in the chaos. As she walked, rain began to fall softly, cooling her burning cheeks. She kept her coat wrapped tightly around her, but it didn't shield her from the icy realization. Her life had changed forever. The city was indifferent to her heartbreak, indifferent to her fear, as it had always been. Cars roared past, people moved on with their lives. But Elena felt the world had stopped for her alone. Her apartment, when she finally returned, felt smaller, constricting, suffocating. The door closed behind her, and she leaned against it, pressing her forehead into the cool surface. Her breaths were shallow, uneven, the taste of tears sharp in her mouth. She thought of Ryan, of the man she had loved, trusted, shared dreams with. And now she realized the illusion had been just that, a fragile mask hiding his ambition, his calculation, his disregard for her autonomy. She sank to the floor, knees pulled to her chest, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. Everything hurt, her body, her mind, her heart. She didn't know how to feel, how to process, how to move forward. Every thought bounced against the walls of her skull in a chaotic, endless loop. Time passed slowly, each second stretching into eternity. The soft hum of the apartment, once familiar, now felt alien. The walls seemed to close in, the silence pressed down like a weight. Suddenly, a subtle noise drew her attention, the faint sound of tires rolling, careful footsteps on the pavement outside. She froze, every nerve alert, her heart skipping a beat. Her instincts screamed at her to hide, to run, to check the locks again. But before she could, the sound intensified. A soft knock at the door, measured, deliberate, yet not threatening. Elena's mind raced. Who could it be? Ryan? Impossible. He had no right after everything. A neighbor? Unlikely at this hour. She stepped toward the door cautiously, every muscle tense, every sense heightened. The knock came again, firmer this time, insistent but controlled. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. When she opened the door, a group of men stood there. Not ordinary men, not random strangers. The precision in their movements, the aura of authority, told her immediately. These were professionals. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Fear rose like a tidal wave. She took a step back instinctively. Who are you? She asked, voice trembling. The tallest one stepped forward slightly, his face partially shadowed. "I'm here on Mr. Moretti's orders," he said calmly. Elena's pulse skipped. Victor's name, whispered before in fear and fascination, now rolled off their tongues with undeniable certainty. "He's aware of your situation," the man continued, "and he insists you come. With us. You are to be safe." Elena's hands shook violently. Safe? From whom? From Ryan? From herself? From Victor? Questions swirled, chaotic and sharp. And yet, something deep inside her flickered. The same instinct that had kept her rooted to the spot when she first met Victor. The same spark she had felt in that accidental touch, that strange magnetic pull, whispered that this was her path now. The men moved closer, silently, efficiently, exuding authority without aggression. One of them offered a hand, an invitation, not a threat. Elena hesitated, looking back toward her apartment, the place where she had felt safe, but no longer. She glanced down at the floor, at the shattered remnants of her trust, at the betrayal etched into every corner of her life. Then she looked up, at the men, at the path forward, at the chance to survive, to reclaim some control. Her fingers brushed the doorknob again, and then, with a deep, shuddering breath, she stepped forward. The men flanked her silently, guiding, protective, unseen yet undeniably present. As they moved through the shadows of the city streets, Elena felt her pulse race. Fear, anticipation, and an undeniable sense of destiny all collided inside her chest. Every instinct screamed at her. Nothing would ever be the same again. Not Ryan, not her home, not the ordinary life she had clung to. And yet, amidst the storm of betrayal and fear, a thread of hope wove through her, fragile, tentative, but undeniable. Victor Moretti had promised protection, and for the first time, she believed that promise might not just be words. The rain fell heavier, washing the streets in silver, reflecting the chaos of her emotions. She stayed silent, letting the men guide her through the city. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, memories of Ryan, flashes of Victor, the spark she could not forget, and the fragile life growing inside her. Each step brought her closer to the unknown. Each breath carried a mix of dread and anticipation. And in the back of her mind, one thought lingered, heavy and insistent. She was no longer alone. Somewhere, unseen but present, Victor's influence hovered over her, protective, unyielding, unrelenting. and she couldn't escape it even if she tried. As they approached the waiting car, Elena's heart skipped. One of the men turned to her, voice calm but firm. "Mr. Moretti will see you shortly. You're safe now, for the moment." Elena's breath caught. She realized, with a mixture of fear and anticipation, that her life was about to change forever. Elena's breath hitched as the sleek black car glided silently through the quiet city streets. The rain had slowed to a mist, leaving the night damp and heavy. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear, betrayal, and confusion, but somewhere deep inside, a fragile spark of relief glimmered. She was no longer alone. The men accompanying her remained silent, professional, their presence both comforting and unnerving. Elena's eyes flicked to the shadows, scanning for threats she couldn't fully imagine. Every instinct screamed that danger could be waiting behind every corner, yet she took a shaky breath and let herself be guided. The mansion appeared at the end of a long, winding driveway, a fortress hidden among trees, elegant yet imposing, exuding power and control. Victor's men moved with precise coordination, ushering her through heavy doors into a space she could only describe as otherworldly. The interior was warm, dimly lit, and meticulously clean. Soft light bounced off polished surfaces, and the faint aroma of herbs and coffee lingered in the air. Elena's pulse quickened as she glanced around, realizing she was in the private domain of Victor Moretti. The man whose reputation terrified the city, a man ruthless and untouchable, had brought her here for protection. Victor appeared then, stepping from a shadowed corridor with a quiet, commanding presence. He wore simple clothes, casual yet sharp, and the faint gleam of a mansa golden chain peeked beneath his shirt. He looked different here, stripped of the cold, public persona, softer somehow, almost human. "Welcome," he said simply, his voice low but carrying warmth she had not expected. Elena's eyes met his, and for a moment the chaos of the past weeks fell away. She saw a flicker of something unspoken, care, concern, and almost protective patience. "I thank you," she whispered, unsure what words could encompass the whirlwind of emotions inside her. He nodded slightly, the corners of his lips tilting faintly. "You're safe here," he said, gesturing toward a comfortable lounge area. "No one will touch you, not while I am aware." The weight of his words sank in, and for the first time, Elena allowed herself to breathe. A small, fragile relief filled her chest, mingling with lingering fear. Victor, for all his reputation, had become her shield. Days passed in quiet, measured routines. Victor's staff ensured her comfort, yet it was his personal attention that unsettled her in the best way. He would appear in the kitchen unannounced, preparing simple meals, ensuring she ate, watching her closely with eyes that softened at her smallest gestures. His presence was commanding yet gentle, an unexpected contradiction that left her heart fluttering. Elena found herself watching him in return, noticing details she had missed before, the subtle tension in his jaw, the way his hands moved with quiet precision, the rare softness in his gaze. Each moment, small and intimate, built an invisible bridge between fear and trust. The accidental brush of hands while passing utensils, the quiet smile when she laughed at a minor joke. These fleeting interactions sent shivers through her, unexpected, yet welcome. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the mansion in warm amber, Victor led her to the balcony. The city stretched below, distant and muted, while the sky burned with the colors of dusk. He handed her a cup of tea, their fingers brushing ever so slightly. Elena's breath caught, heart fluttering in a rhythm she couldn't control. "You're all quiet," Victor observed, voice low and soft. I've just never felt safe like this," she admitted, meeting his gaze. He nodded slowly, as if absorbing each word. "It will take time," he said, "but you will heal, and you'll understand that not all who hold power seek to destroy." Her chest warmed at the unexpected tenderness. He was a man feared by all, yet here he was, gentle, caring, protective. The duality confused her heart, but it also drew her closer in ways she didn't yet comprehend. Days melted into nights, slow breakfasts, quiet conversations, shared silences filled with meaning. Each moment built trust, familiarity, and a fragile connection that neither wanted to name aloud. Elena realized that her heart, so broken by betrayal, began to heal under his watchful presence. Every glance, every subtle touch, every fleeting smile chipped away at the walls she had built around herself. One afternoon, as she walked through the sunlit garden, Victor appeared behind her. Without a word, he offered his arm, a gesture of protection and guidance. Elena hesitated, then placed her hand lightly upon it. Her pulse raced, her skin tingled, and the unspoken promise in that simple contact left her breathless. Victor's gaze met hers, soft and intense, all at once. "You are safe," he said, voice low, intimate, "and I will not let anyone harm you." Elena's lips parted, heart thundering. She wanted to speak, to ask the questions crowding her mind, to express gratitude, fear, and longing all at once. But no words came. All she could do was nod, her hand lingering on his arm a moment longer than necessary. Evenings brought more quiet intimacy. Dinner at a private table, candles flickering softly. The faint warmth of proximity, the quiet laughter, the shared glances, all small gestures, but they carried weight. Her heart, still fragile, began to open to him, to trust him, to feel something she hadn't in years. Victor noticed every subtle change. He noticed how her shoulders relaxed when he was near, how her laughter grew lighter, how her eyes occasionally lingered on him with unspoken curiosity. It stirred something unfamiliar in him as well, a protective desire, a fascination, a pull he hadn't expected to feel for anyone. Even the smallest gestures became charged with tension. The brush of his fingers against hers when handing her a cup of tea, the faint warmth of his presence as he leaned close to adjust a chair, the quiet care in his words, all ignited something delicate and dangerous in her chest. Days passed like this, each moment building a slow burn connection. Elena realized she was thinking of him when he wasn't there, feeling his absence in ways she didn't want to admit. Her heart, once heavy with betrayal and fear, began to recognize that this man, feared by the world, was becoming her anchor. She wanted to resist. She wanted to remind herself of the danger, of the past, of her broken trust in men. But every glance, every word, every soft gesture from Victor pulled her closer, unrelentingly. And just as her heart began to entertain hope, the sound came, sharp, sudden, and violent. A deafening crash shattered the stillness of the room. Glass exploded inward as a sniper bullet tore through the window beside them. Shards scattered across the polished floor. Elena screamed, stumbling backward as adrenaline surged through her veins. Victor reacted instantly, moving with lethal precision to shield her, pulling her behind him. The quiet sanctuary of the mansion had been breached in an instant. The air was filled with tension, fear, and the unmistakable awareness that someone wanted her gone. Victor's eyes blazed with fury and resolve. "This is not a threat they will get away with," he growled, voice low and dangerous. He gripped her hand firmly, not letting go. "You are under my protection. I will not allow them to touch you." Elena's chest heaved with fear and awe. The man she had come to trust, the one she had begged to feel something for, transformed before her eyes into the very force she had imagined, ruthless, protective, and unstoppable. Her heart raced, not just with fear, but with a confusing mix of exhilaration and admiration. She realized fully, in that instant, that Victor Moretti was more than just her protector. He was a storm, a force, a presence that would not allow harm to touch her. The room was tense, every muscle coiled, every thought sharp. Victor's gaze swept the shadows outside, calculating, measuring, already planning. He would find whoever had dared to fire at her, and they would regret it. Elena clutched Victor's arm as they crouched behind the shattered window. Through the rain-streaked glass, she saw the faint outline of a sniper across the rooftops, aiming for her again. Victor's eyes narrowed, and his voice dropped to a growl. No one touches her. Not while I'm breathing. The sniper's shot echoed across the mansion grounds, reverberating like a warning through the silent night. Elena's chest heaved as she clung to Victor, eyes wide with terror. Rain continued to streak the shattered window, cold droplets mingling with the adrenaline racing through her veins. Victor's jaw tightened, his hands gripping hers with a strength that anchored her in place. He didn't speak. Words were unnecessary. His presence alone communicated resolve, control, and deadly intent. The shadows outside shifted. Movement. Subtle, calculated, threatening. Victor's eyes scanned every rooftop, every corner, every shadow for the slightest hint of danger. He moved with lethal precision, crouching low, his body a shield for Elena. A sudden flash, gunfire erupted, bullets smashed through glass, ricocheting with terrifying sound. Elena screamed, instinctively dropping to the floor as shards rained around her. Victor's hands gripped hers tighter, pulling her behind cover. "Stay down," he barked, voice cutting through the chaos. She nodded, trembling violently, heart hammering in her chest. The sound of bullets and shouts filled the mansion, a symphony of chaos, orchestrated by death and fear. Victor moved with predatory efficiency, dodging debris and gunfire, returning shots with calculated precision. Every movement was sharp, deliberate, controlled. Elena watched him in awe and fear. The man she had begun to trust now fully transformed into a force of raw, untouchable power. Her mind was a whirlwind. Fear clawed at her chest, adrenaline blurred her vision, yet beneath it all, a strange heat spread in her veins. The man protecting her, the man whose presence she had begun to crave, was not only fierce, but utterly devoted. A figure appeared on the balcony, silhouetted against the night. Victor's eyes narrowed. Without hesitation, he moved, covering Elena with his body, firing in short, controlled bursts. The attacker fell back, injured but not defeated. Elena's breath caught. This was no ordinary threat. This was someone willing to kill, to destroy. Her stomach churned with terror, yet clung to Victor like a lifeline. He glanced at her, eyes meeting hers for a fleeting second. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low but urgent, carrying the weight of command. She nodded, words caught in her throat. All she could do was nod, trembling as he continued to fight. The battle moved through the mansion, bullets shattering walls, splintering wood, tearing through furniture. Elena ducked behind cover, heart racing with every sound. She saw Victor move like a shadow, untouchable, a storm in human form. Every shot he fired was precise, every movement calculated. A moment of stillness fell. Victor scanned the room, eyes dark and stormy. He whispered, almost to himself, "They will not touch her. Not now, not ever." Elena felt her pulse quicken at the raw intensity in his tone. The words, though quiet, were a promise, a declaration, a revelation of feelings she had not dared to hope for. A sudden movement, another gunman on the sty. Victor's reaction was instantaneous. He moved like liquid steel, intercepting the man with devastating force. Elena gasped as he disarmed the attacker, the sheer violence and skill leaving her stunned and terrified. She tried to speak, to call out, but the words caught in her throat. Victor turned to her, eyes blazing with determination. "Stay behind me," he ordered, voice low and commanding. She obeyed, trembling, feeling the heat of his body behind hers, the solid strength that promised protection and safety. The gunfire continued, relentless, echoing through the night. Elena's hands were clammy, her knees weak, but she refused to let go of Victor's coat. Every fiber of her being clung to him, as if his presence alone could shield her from the storm. A sudden silence fell. Victor's eyes swept the room, every corner, every shadow. The attackers had retreated, leaving behind a trail of chaos, broken glass, and fear. He exhaled, the tension in his body easing slightly, though the storm of danger was far from over. Elena collapsed into his arms, shaking, tears streaming freely down her face. I was so scared, she whispered, voice breaking. Her body pressed against him, seeking safety, warmth, reassurance. Victor held her tightly, one hand resting on her back, the other cradling her head. He breathed her in, the faint scent of rain, soap, and her own unique fragrance. For the first time, he allowed himself to acknowledge the pull, the need, the undeniable desire that had been growing since their first accidental touch. I can't lose you, he admitted, voice raw and low. Not you, not her, not this. Elena looked up at him, startled by the depth of feeling in his eyes, the honesty in a man who had always been untouchable, unfeeling. Her tears blurred her vision, but she smiled faintly through the shaking. You won't, she whispered, though her voice was veered. I'm not going anywhere. The intensity between them was palpable, electric. A magnetic pull that had grown slowly over days now surged like a tide, undeniable, overwhelming. She felt his chest against hers, his heartbeat steady and strong, anchoring her in ways she hadn't realized she needed. Victor lowered his forehead against hers, voice a mere breath. I swear, nothing will ever harm you while I'm here. Elena's hands found his face, cupping it gently, feeling the warmth beneath the tattoos, beneath the gold chain, beneath the hard exterior he showed the world. I trust you, she whispered, and the words felt like a confession, a surrender, a declaration of fragile faith. They remained there, holding each other amidst the chaos, the mansion around them scarred by the violence of the night. Time seemed to stretch, the world shrinking to just the two of them. Every sound, every heartbeat, every breath was intertwined. Victor's lips hovered near hers, a promise unspoken yet understood. Elena's heart pounded in response, her body responding to the closeness, the intimacy, the safety in his arms. Fear and desire collided, creating a tension that neither could ignore. But even as they held each other, the danger had not passed. Victor's gaze flicked to the windows, to the shadows, always alert, always protective. He whispered again, more to himself than her. They think they can touch her. They have no idea what they're up against. Elena shivered in his embrace, a mix of fear and something deeper, something she couldn't yet name. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt truly seen, truly protected, truly alive. The night stretched on, quiet now, but with every sense alert to possible danger. And as the rain tapped against the broken window, she realized she had begun to depend on him. Not just for protection, but for the strange, exhilarating hope that something more than fear could exist between them. As Victor held her close, their foreheads touching, Elena's breath caught. Through the rain-streaked window, she glimpsed a child, Dow moving silently on the rooftop. Someone watching, someone waiting. Victor's eyes narrowed, lips tightening, and his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. They're not finished, and neither will I be. The night had settled into a tense quiet, the rain now a gentle drizzle tapping against the mansion windows. Elena rested in Victor's arms, heart still pounding from the earlier attack, yet a fragile warmth lingered. The sensation of safety was new, almost disorienting, but deeply comforting. Victor's eyes never left hers, the intensity of his gaze grounding her, reminding her that she was protected, cared for, and seen. His presence was more than physical. It was a shield against the chaos of the world, a promise carved in silence and fierce devotion. Suddenly, the mansion doors burst open. A figure stepped inside, confident, calculating, unafraid. Elena froze. Her chest tightened. Her stomach lurched with the realization, Ryan. He was soaked from the drizzle, his eyes cold and sharp. There was no remorse, no hesitation, no trace of the man she had once loved. Instead, he exuded menace, the kind born of greed, ambition, and betrayal. Elena, he said smoothly, voice calm but edged with danger. I need to talk to you. Elena instinctively moved closer to Victor, trembling. Stay back. Victor's voice was low, dangerous, but controlled. Elena could feel the tension coiling around them like a spring about to snap. Ryan's lips curled into a faint, calculating smile. You're safe here, for now, he said, glancing around the room, eyes narrowing. But things are about to change. Elena's mind raced, fear and confusion colliding. What do you mean? She demanded, voice quivering but firm. Ryan stepped closer, ignoring Victor's warning, his gaze locked on her. I've been working for the right people, he admitted, voice smooth but sinister. People who understand and the value of leverage. And right now, you, Elena, are my leverage. Victor's jaw tightened, his eyes darkening. Every muscle in his body coiled like a predator about to strike. You've betrayed her, he said, voice low and deadly. Ryan smiled faintly, unbothered by the fury radiating from the man before him. Elena's hands trembled. You're working with them? She asked, disbelief coloring every word. Ryan shrugged, a casual motion that made her stomach turn. I did what I had to do. You should thank me. Soon, you'll understand. Her chest constricted. Thank you? You gave me to him, to Victor, for your ambitions. Her voice cracked. I trusted you, and this is how you repay me? Ryan's eyes were cold, calculating, unflinching. He stepped closer, ignoring Victor's stance, ignoring Elena's trembling. I need you back, Elena, he said, voice low, almost seductive. Together we can dismantle him, take everything he built, and your son, your child, will be ours. Elena staggered backward, shock and horror colliding. Her mind spun. Her child, her body, the life growing inside her, the reason Victor had promised protection, the reason her heart had begun to trust and feel, all under threat. Victor moved like a shadow, positioning himself between her and Ryan. His hands curled into fists, each knuckle white with control and suppressed rage. You're insane if you think she will ever come with you, Victor growled, voice low and dangerous. She is under my protection, and I will not allow you to touch her or the child. Ryan's lips twisted into a smirk, the same cold, calculating expression he had worn when betraying her weeks ago. You think you're untouchable? He said, voice sharp, almost mocking. You can't control everything, Victor. Sooner or later, the world turns against even the strongest of men. Elena's stomach churned with fear and anger. How could you betray me like this? She whispered, voice breaking. Did our marriage mean nothing to you? Did I mean nothing? Ryan's expression softened, a cruel mimicry of sincerity. It wasn't. About you, Elena. It's about power, opportunity, survival, he said smoothly. You'll thank me when you see the bigger picture. Victor's eyes blazed, a storm contained within steel and shadow. He moved with the silent menace of a predator about to strike. Elena is not a pawn, he said coldly. She is a human being, and anyone who touches her will pay. Ryan's smirk faltered for the briefest second, just long enough for Victor to strike. In one fluid, controlled motion, Victor seized him, pinning Ryan against the wall with lethal precision. Elena gasped, eyes wide, heart hammering. Victor's strength was terrifying, undeniable, a force of raw authority. Victor, wait! Elena cried, her voice desperate. She rushed forward, hands on his chest, trying to pull him back. Don't kill him. Please, I can't lose both of you. Victor's eyes softened for a fraction, just long enough for her to see the conflict within him. He didn't release Ryan, but the grip of his hands eased slightly. I won't harm him. Not yet, he said, voice low and controlled. But Elena, he will never be trusted again. And if he ever endangers you or your child, there will be consequences. Elena's knees nearly gave way, and she clung to Victor, her body trembling. I I just can't lose you, she whispered, voice raw with emotion. You're all I have, and I I'm beginning to feel. Her words faltered, caught between fear, gratitude, and the faint, trembling spark of love. Victor held her tighter, forehead resting against hers, breathing her in. The quiet intimacy between them was a fragile thread amidst the chaos of betrayal and danger. Ryan, pinned and struggling, glared at them both. You'll regret this, he spat, his voice edged with venom. But Victor's calm, unflinching stare silenced him, a quiet, deadly promise that every action had consequences. Elena looked at Victor, tear streaking her face. I I trust you, she whispered again, the words heavier now, laced with fear, love, and the fragile hope that he would protect her. Victor's gaze softened, the hard lines of Bao. The Mafia Boss melting into something unspoken, yet undeniable. You don't need to be afraid, he said quietly. I will not let anyone harm you. Not ever. Her hands found his face, tracing the tattoos and the faint golden chain, feeling the warmth beneath the intimidating exterior. She pressed herself against him, finding safety, comfort, and a growing, undeniable desire. Ryan struggled beneath Victor's hold, but Elena's attention was elsewhere. Her heart, once broken by betrayal and fear, was now tethered to the man holding her, the man who had saved her, and the man she was beginning to love in ways she could neither deny nor understand. The mansion, scarred by the earlier attack, was quiet now. Rain drizzled softly outside, casting a reflective glow over the chaos within. Yet even in this fragile calm, the tension remained. The unspoken threat of Ryan, the dangers surrounding them, and the impossible pull between Elena and Victor. She closed her eyes, letting Victor's presence envelop her, feeling the weight of protection and the stirring of emotions she had tried to suppress. Every heartbeat was synchronized with his, every breath a tether binding them closer in a slow, deliberate, dangerous intimacy. Even as Ryan spat threats, even as shadows lurked beyond the walls, Elena knew one thing with certainty. She belonged here, in Victor's arms, and he would not let anything harm her or the life growing inside her. Victor tightened his hold on Ryan, voice low and deadly. You've crossed a line, but she's begging me, so I'll decide your fate. Elena's heart raced, knowing the next moments could change everything, for her, her child, and the man she was beginning to love. Elena's heart was still racing from the confrontation with Ryan. Her chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath, the adrenaline slowly giving way to exhaustion and lingering fear. Victor's hand remained firm on Ryan, his gaze unflinching, protective, and dangerous, a storm waiting to be unleashed. Ryan's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from him as he finally looked at Elena. Tears streaked his face, his usual bravado replaced by raw, unguarded vulnerability. I'm sorry, he whispered, voice cracking. I never meant any of this to happen. I was selfish. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. Elena's body trembled. The words that once would have made her turn away now felt hollow against the relief she felt being safe in Victor's arms. Yet anger and hurt surged through her, the memory of betrayal, fear, and manipulation still raw. Ryan's gaze met hers, filled with remorse and desperation. I got involved with the wrong people. I thought I could control everything. Control you, control her, he said, his voice breaking. I was wrong, so wrong. Elena's breath caught. Her hands shook as she pressed them against her face, the weight of months of betrayal crashing down in waves. Do you realize what you've done? She asked, voice quivering. You gave my body to him. for your schemes. Do you even understand? Ryan lowered his gaze, shame painted across his features. I understand now, he admitted, the tears sliding freely. I know I've lost you, Elena. I've lost everything I should have protected. And I'm sorry. Victor's grip on Ryan didn't loosen, but his gaze softened slightly as he looked at Elena. You hear that? Victor asked, voice low but steady. She knows the truth. She's hurt. And you will answer for every lie, every betrayal, every risk you took with her life. Elena's lips trembled, tears spilling freely now. Her mind was a whirl of emotions, relief, lingering fear, and the unspoken pull toward the man who had saved her, protected her, and stood by her through chaos. She felt Victor's hand brush hers, gentillesse, all in grounding, a silent reassurance in the midst of her storm. Victor, she began, voice small but determined. Her eyes met his, shining with a mix of vulnerability and courage. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to raise this baby with you. Victor's eyes widened slightly, surprise flickering in the depths of his stormy gaze. Then, a slow, deliberate smile curved his lips. You mean it? He asked, voice husky, low, and intimate. She nodded, lips quivering, heart pounding. Yes, she whispered, leaning slightly into him. I want to build a life. For the baby. For us. I trust you. Victor's hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing lightly against her soft skin. You don't know how long I've waited to hear those words, he murmured, and how much I've wanted you. Her eyes softened, the tension in her chest melting just a fraction. She pressed herself closer to him, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady strength of his presence. The world outside, betrayal, danger, fear, faded to nothing. They stood together, bodies close, hearts pounding, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. Victor's fingers traced the line of her jaw, down to her neck, lingering in a touch that was both tender and charged. Elena's breath hitched at the contact, the heat of desire mingling with the relief of safety and the stirring of love. I've never felt safe like this, she admitted, voice trembling. Not since everything started. But with you, I feel protected. And Victor leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers, eyes dark and intense. You don't have to say anything more, he whispered. Just stay with me. Trust me. Let me protect you. Always. Elena's hands threaded into his, holding on as if letting go would mean losing everything. I trust you, she murmured, tears falling freely. I love you. I think I already have. Victor's lips brushed her temple gently, a soft kiss, a promise, a claim. Her body shivered at the contact, heart aching with emotion, desire, and relief. It was a moment suspended in time, two broken peas, people finding light in the darkness, warmth in the storm, love in the chaos. Their embrace deepened, a silent affirmation of connection, trust, and unspoken promises. Elena leaned against Victor, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat, the strength of his body, the unyielding devotion that radiated from him. It was intoxicating, overwhelming, and perfectly terrifying. Victor's hands moved gently over her back, pulling her closer, grounding her in the moment. I can't imagine life without you, he murmured, voice low, husky, heavy with emotion. You're my anchor, my reason, and this child, our child, will be my world. Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks as she pressed closer to him. She had feared, doubted, and been betrayed. But here, in this moment, she felt something she hadn't in a long time: hope, trust, and the stirring of something far deeper than fear. Ryan, still pinned but now silent, watched the connection between them with a mixture of fear, awe, and regret. He realized fully that Elena's heart, once his, was no longer available. And Victor was not a man to be trifled with. Elena whispered against Victor's chest, voice breaking with emotion. I'm ready to start over, with you. Victor tightened his embrace, pressing her closer, a silent vow passing between them. I will never let anyone harm you again, he said, voice a growl of promise. You and this child are mine to protect, always. The room seemed to exhale with them, the tension easing just slightly. But outside, the world remained a dangerous place, full of shadows, threats, and betrayal. Elena knew that nothing would be simple, but for the first time, she believed that love, dark, complicated, and unexpected, could survive. They stood in the quiet mansion, hearts beating in unison, bodies pressed together, a fragile sense of peace blooming between them. The slow burn-ahs of desire, trust, and connection hung in the air, unspoken yet undeniable. It was a moment they both savored, a calm before the storm, a fragile light in the darkness. Elena pressed her lips briefly to Victor's chest, breathing in the scent of him, leather, soap, and something uniquely his. Her fingers traced the lines of his tattoos, marveling at the contrast of roughness and warmth. I think I love you, she admitted again, almost to herself, almost a prayer. Victor's hands cupped her face, lips hovering near hers. I've been waiting to hear that, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. You have no idea how long. The tension, the desire, the vulnerability all merged into one silent promise. Neither spoke, for words were unnecessary. They had found each other in the chaos, and that was enough. For now. And yet, even in this fragile moment of closeness, a shadow lurked beyond the walls. The calm was a fragile illusion, a temporary pause in a world that rarely forgave weakness. The mansion doors burst open violently, shattering the fragile peace. Police stormed in, guns raised, voices shouting, lights flashing. Victor's eyes narrowed, lips pressing into a thin line, and he muttered under his breath, "Someone's betrayed us. And now we pay the price." The sound of shouting, flashing lights, and the thunderous approach of boots filled the mansion. Elena clutched Victor's arm, her heart pounding as she realized the police weren't here for her. They were here for him. Victor's eyes, stormy and piercing, swept across the room, assessing the threat, calculating every angle, every risk. He remained calm, the calm of a man who had faced death countless times, yet never let fear rule him. "Victor!" Elena cried, voice trembling. "What's happening?" "They're here. For me," he said softly, a shadow of weariness crossing his expression. But his tone carried reassurance, a promise that despite the danger, he would protect her until the last possible second. The lead officer approached cautiously, gun lowered but ready. "Victor Moretti, you're under arrest," he announced. Victor didn't resist, but his eyes never left Elena's. A flicker of sadness, of longing, and a silent vow passed between them in that glance. "I'll find you again," he whispered, leaning close to her ear. "Raise our child strong. I'll come back to you. I promise." Elena's breath caught. Tears welled in her eyes as she pressed her hand to his face. You have to come back," she said, voice trembling. "Promise me, Victor. Promise me you'll come back." Victor smiled faintly, a rare, soft smile that didn't hide the intensity of his soul. "I always keep my promises," he whispered before being handcuffed and led toward the waiting car. Elena ran beside him, trying to cling to the moments they had left, her hand brushing his. He squeezed her hand gently in return, a lifeline in the chaos of separation. "I love you," she said, voice breaking. "I'll wait. I'll raise our child, and I'll wait for you." The car doors slammed, sirens blaring, but Victor's piercing gray eyes never left hers. The distance between them felt unbearable, yet unspoken trust tethered their hearts together. Weeks turned into months. Elena remained in the mansion, carefully tending to her life, preparing for the arrival of the child. Victor's presence lingered in every corner, in the faint scent of his cologne, the warmth of his shirts folded neatly, the silent echoes of his protection. Every night, she dreamed of his arms around her, of the stormy gaze that had both terrified and comforted her. Every day, she spoke to the baby growing inside her, whispering the story of the man who would be their father, a man as strong and loving as he was fierce. The day came. Elena's contractions began early in the morning, and the hospital was rushed with urgency and careful precision. She gripped the hand of a nurse, her heart racing, anticipation and fear warring in her chest. Hours passed. Pain, sweat, and tears mingled in a haze of emotion, and then a cry, loud, sharp, and miraculous. Elena's chest heaved as she heard it, and a nurse placed the tiny bundle in her arms. Her breath caught. The baby's eyes opened, revealing a pair of piercing gray eyes, the unmistakable mark of Victor. Tears spilled freely down Elena's cheeks as she cradled her child. You are perfect," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're his, and mine." Months of fear, uncertainty, and longing seemed to vanish in that moment. Her heart ached with relief, joy, and a love so profound it could not be contained. She whispered to the baby, her words filled with hope and promise. "You'll know him one day. Your father, your protector, your hero." And then the hospital doors opened. Elena looked up, heart skipping a beat. There he was, Victor Moretti, free, alive, and more commanding than ever, stood in the doorway. In his hands, a simple bouquet of flowers, a quiet, intimate gesture that spoke volumes of his devotion. "Elena," he said, voice low and husky, carrying the weight of all the months apart. "I told you I'd come back." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she rose to her feet, rushing into his arms. The baby nestled safely in her arms as Victor bent down, eyes locking with hers, piercing and full of promise. "I never left your side," he whispered against her hair. "Even when they thought they had me, I was always thinking of you and our child." Elena pressed her lips to his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of leather, soap, and him. Her anchor, her protector, her love. I waited," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "And now, we're together, finally." Victor's hands cupped her face, lifting her gaze to meet his. "You are my everything," he said softly, almost reverently. "And this family, is ours to protect, to love, and to cherish." The baby stirred, cooing softly, and Victor leaned closer, brushing a gentle kiss on the small head. "Our child," he murmured, eyes softening in awe and devotion. "Our greatest treasure, and the proof that even in darkness, love survives." Elena smiled, tears still glistening as she pressed herself against him, feeling the strength of his embrace, the depth of his love. For the first time in months, she felt complete, safe, loved, and whole. Victor whispered again, voice low, steady, and intimate. "I told you I'd come back, and I always keep my promises." Their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss, filled with relief, passion, and the slow burn of love that had grown through chaos, betrayal, and danger. It was a love tested by fire, forged in darkness, and now finally free to flourish. The hospital rooms seemed to glow around them, the tension of past dangers melting away, replaced by hope, joy, and the first real sense of family. Elena held their child close, Victor holding her, and together they allowed themselves to finally breathe. The weight of the past remained in memory, but it no longer ruled them. They had survived, loved, and emerged stronger, bound by a connection that could not be broken. Victor's gaze lingered on Elena, stormy and tender all at once. "You're mine," he said softly, "and this child, ours, forever." Elena smiled, heart full, eyes glistening. "Yes," she whispered, "forever." Outside, the world waited with its dangers and uncertainties. But inside, love had won, a family had begun, and nothing, no betrayal, no enemy, could undo what they had created together. As Victor kissed Elena's forehead, he whispered softly, "No matter what comes next, we'll face it together, always." And for the first time in months, the three of them, Elena, Victor, and their child, were truly, completely, unbreakably together.